Hi, everyone. Clarice Schillinger, BethAnn Rosica with Moms in the Middle podcast. We have really enjoyed all the comments and feedback on our new podcast and all the well wishes to continue on. So today I'm super excited that BethAnn has brought this guest to us that we'll have enter our studio here shortly. As promised, we were going to bring someone who has left the union. Where's the teachers union or public school union money go? When we talk about this kind of money, we're talking about your money. Your school tax dollars go in to salaries and then somehow end up in a union that influences politics. I will tell you, the National Educators Association just last year in 2021 spent $50 million in Democrat politics, very one sided approach, which is concerning because every taxpayer paying this money is not necessarily aligned with the principles that their money is being used for. So Beth Ann, before I add our guests in here, if you want to give her an introduction and how you all met, and then I'll add her to our studio.
Great. Well, we are super excited to have Karin here today. She is one of those unsung heroes out on the front lines, fighting every day, not just for our children, but to help educate teachers everywhere about what the union's motives are, what their political agendas are. And Karin is a teacher, still a public school teacher, who left the union and who now is really trying to help educate other teachers to say, are you aware of where your money is going? Do you know that legally you're not required to join a union? And in her school district, she's actually helping to give teachers options to opt out of the union, not only to save money, but also to be free of the political motivations that these unions have. So, Karin, I met Karin several months ago, and I really have a lot of respect for her tenacity and her courage, because it's not easy to walk away from the union when everybody else in your school district belongs. So I am thrilled to introduce Karin and to have her as a guest on our show today.
Yes.
Thanks,
Hi,
BethAnn.
Karen.
Hi,
Thank
good
you so
morning.
much for joining us today. So we were having a brief conversation offline, and I'm really excited to have everyone listen to your story. If you want to kick it off, tell us how you ended up here, what made you leave the union, why you did so. And then Beth Ann and I can ask you some questions, maybe dig a little deeper, but just give us the rundown of what really brought you to this conclusion. And as Beth Ann said, it's really hard to do something and leave something that everyone else in your school is a member of.
Yes. Well, thank you, ladies, for having me on. I appreciate this. I think the podcast is great. I'm a mother as well. Moms in the Middle. I love the name. I have been teaching for 9 years, and in June of 2021 last year, there was a legal stance that the PSEA took that basically said that they were in favor of vaccine mandates for all school workers. And that was the first time that I had ever seen the union take a stance on something that was such a personal issue for me. Prior to that, it was very quiet. The union never really made waves like that. So that was a red flag for me, because I was like, whoa, that's very, that's my health, So that was my first red flag. And then shortly thereafter, the NEA, the National Education Association, came out with a stance saying that they wanted to start pushing CRT in all public schools across the nation, and that they were actually going to try to stop anyone who didn't agree with that. So I think the biggest thing about that is during that time for me, with everything that was going on with COVID and the vaccine mandates and everything, I felt so out of control. I felt like I couldn't do anything about what was happening in the country and education. And a lot of people say, well, what made you do that then in that moment? And I think when you come to a point where you just can't complain anymore, and it was impacting my mental health. I was really anxious about things. So when I found this stuff out, it was it for me. I said, I can't do this anymore. I cannot fund, I'm out of control of so many things, but what I can control is my money and where that's going. So that for me was the time that I said, I can't do this anymore. I need to look into alternatives. I need to look into what options I have. I just need to educate myself. So that is why I really started to get out of the union, because I couldn't do it anymore.
So that real tipping point. I think that all of us, moms and dads across the country that BethAnn and I have met, everyone has that certain tipping point that pushed them and said, enough is enough. Why is the government at my kitchen table? Why are unelected bureaucrats at my kitchen table telling me what to do, whether it's the vaccines or the curriculum, whatever that tipping point was for people? We all seem to kind of have one. For me, my children were not doing well on virtual learning. My husband had shattered his leg, so I actually had 3 kids home. He could not walk for a year, and I had 2 children on virtual learning for 2 years. That was my tipping point, and said, I'm going to go out and elect school board members. And who would have ever known that we would have elected 130 plus or whatever the number is and helped people nationwide and met people and warriors like BethAnn and Karin. I mean, this is a real movement. So I'm glad that you hit that tipping point, but I think that we all can agree that it is a real struggle when you hit that, because you lose friends, you lose, relationships with colleagues. I know that BethAnn and I both have experienced that, but we want to applaud you for really taking that step. BethAnn, do you have any questions?
I think it's really important for Karin to talk about, how you were able to find out the information about where the teachers union money was going, the causes. I know you talked a little bit about the vaccine mandate. You talked about the CRT issues. I know that I had seen that one of the national unions, one of their agenda items was the unionization of Amazon workers. And I was like, what in the world is this about? Like, this has nothing to do with teachers or about academic performance for kids. So I would really like to hear your journey on how you did the research, how you found out about some of these agendas, and then some of the other groups that helped you, because I know like the Freedom Foundation, the Americans for Fair Treatment, there are big national groups that are not just helping teachers, but all unionized workers be able to walk away. So I think that would be really helpful information for our viewers to understand how you were able to get the information to make the moves that you did.
It's so empowering once you get that information. So I was put in contact with Freedom Foundation, their outreach director. So I called them up right away, and I spent a long time asking many questions to the outreach director, because, I had gone 9 years of education, and it is scary. It is a scary thing, like you were saying, to step out away from what everyone's doing. But like I said, it was just time. So Freedom Foundation was great because they were able to give me the information about my Janus rights and how you don't actually need to join the union ever since the Janus ruling in 2018. So that ruling basically happened. The Supreme Court ruled that Mark Janus was the man who was in that lawsuit, but the court said that the union is inherently political. So it was going against Mark Janus's First Amendment rights because he was paying fair share fees. So ever since that ruling, fair share is no longer, and it's not a requirement to pay the union dues as a requirement of employment. So,
and I want to just, Karin, I want to just stop you for 1 second, because I think this is really important for our viewers to hear. So the Janus ruling obviously gives every person a right to join or not join a union. But what I hear you saying is that the Supreme Court ruled that the union is a political organization. And I think that is a not so subtle piece of information that all of our listeners, and particularly our teachers, need to understand. This union is not really there to advocate for you. it is a political organization. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that just struck me. So I had not heard it put that way specifically before. And I think that's a really important piece of information for people to have. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, no, it really is. So because the court found it to be so politically, inherently political, that's why Mark Janus won that case. So, and a lot of people think that doesn't apply to everyone. It does. It was a Supreme Court ruling, so it doesn't matter what state you're in. It doesn't. The other thing that the union likes to tell people is that, well, you can only leave the union at certain times. You have these windows of opportunities to leave, and you have to pay penalties if you leave. And all of that is a false information, and it's just a scare tactic, which is a shame, that they're doing that, obviously. But it's all about the money. So, of course, they want people to stay. So that is false information. So you can leave the union at any time. All you need to do is give written notice to, what I tell people to do is write a letter, or Freedom Foundation has this great program called optouttoday.com, and it's free. You go to the website, optouttoday.com, you put in your information about what district you're in, and they basically give you like a mock-up letter, and then you can certify mail it to the PSEA, and that's it. And I say certified.
You don't even have to write the letter. We have entities that are helping teachers. I have two questions that I think that a lot of our listeners would really like to know. Is first, why would a teacher stay in the union? Really explain to us. I've spoke with a lot of teachers, but I don't think that a lot of just, regular everyday people that aren't as close to this topic, they don't understand why teachers would stay in the union. Can you talk about like the legal, the bonding? I think that there's some insurances, some help that the union does provide. And also, now that you've left the union, you still have that protection.
Correct. Yeah, so so when there's so much to this. It's such a huge thing. So oftentimes the union will start at a young age. Like you're in college, and let's say you're in the student teaching program. I mean, they're getting educators from the beginning. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you're in college. They're saying, oh, if you do your student teaching, you'll get a discount, or, we'll protect you in case something happens. So they're starting this very early on. So let's say then now you're a new teacher and you go to induction. Every teacher has to do induction. And then induction, I'm not saying all the time, but oftentimes I hear teachers say that the union will come into induction and they'll tell these horror stories of how somebody, a parent said that they were harassing their child and there was this huge lawsuit, and the union is the only one who can protect you against those things. And they use a lot of fear. And so they tell these new teachers, listen, we're going to protect you. And then the other aspect is they hold the bargaining contract. They bargain your, they bargain your contract. So you should be paying dues because we are getting, we're getting you these great salaries or these health insurance, and we are protecting you. We're bargaining your contract. So that's the pitch that they give people. And there is truth to those things. Okay. But there's also, they monopolize that information. They don't tell people that there are other options. They don't tell people about the Janus rights. So so breaking that down. So let's talk about the protection, right? They say that we can protect you. So because the union holds the bargaining contract, okay, they have to protect you, even if you don't pay your dues. So that is the exclusive representational law. So basically, like I don't pay my union dues, but if I got into trouble, they would have to represent me. Now, the question in there comes, what kind of quality are they going to do?
Do you want them to? Right.
Right. Do I want them to represent me in that situation? What kind of a job will they do in that situation?
Right.
So that's where the Keystone Teachers Association is the teachers association that I joined. So, and you can also join, there's a couple of them. There are America's Teachers Association, which is a national organization. There's the Christian Teachers Association, which is another national one. So you can join other associations for that protection. So I could call my rep for KETA and say, hey, I'm having a disciplinary meeting. I need you to come in. We need to brief about it and be represented that way. And so you can still have protection without the union.
And Karin, what is the difference in cost, just basically like ballpark, between the PSCA or your local union dues and these other organizations?
So it's a huge difference. And the reason why, so I was paying about $160 a month for my union dues, and now I pay $39 a month for KETA.
Wow.
And the reason why it's so, less expensive is because when you're paying union dues, it's going to so many more things. It's going to your local, it's going to the PSCA, the state level, and then it's going to the national level. And you're paying so much more because you're paying the PSCA salaries. You're paying the salaries of, these administrators that are just, $500,000.
Randy Weingarten.
Right.
Yes, right.
Randy Weingarten, the president of the National Educators Association, makes $500,000 a year with teachers' salaries that, let's say an average teacher, 40, 60 grand. And the president of the teachers union national AFT is making $500,000.
Right. So here's like some quick little numbers for you. So Becky Pringle, the president of the NEA, is pocketing $534,000 in compensation. The vice president is making $371,000. The NEA secretary treasury $348,000. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. I mean,
that's no joke here,
right? I
mean, this is actually what bothers me the most. Is this is a two-pronged issue. This is with taxpayer money,
right?
So it is. I think that we constantly forget that. So I always bring it back. This is school taxes. When seniors talk about being taxed out of their homes and not being able to afford the constant rise in school taxes from 3 to 5%, whatever it happens to be that year, is paying these salaries first and foremost. But those very people that say that they're representing the teachers, they're not living on a teacher's salary.
No.
They're getting triple what teachers are getting, when the teachers are the ones in the mud, in the muck, boots on the ground, educating our students. And we have these unelected bureaucrats lining their pockets with taxpayers and teachers' money. That's a problem.
Exactly.
It's really it's ingenious. It's really a money laundering system.
Sure.
I mean, that's exactly what it is. And you see that very clearly because, like you were saying, the taxpayers pay the money to the teacher's salary, and then the teachers are bullied and pressured into paying union dues, and then that money is going to political spending. I can give you some very interesting stats on that. So, for example, every year the NEA has to put out an LM2, which is basically their financial record saying where their money's going, and it's this huge document. So a breakdown of this document shows that in 2021, they made $377 million just in 1 year on dues money and agency fees. So then it's astronomical. I mean, that's in 1 year. That's out of control. So the LM2 also breaks it down to tell you that they spent on political, this is their own LM2. I'm not making this up. I'm not pulling this out of the air. It says political activities and grants is basically $117 million. And that's their own LM2s. And then you have $150 million on administration salaries and benefits that they're spending.
$150 million.
Right.
She's not saying 150,000.
I know.
Right.
Well, and to this point, though, this is why the NEA and the AFT are so powerful. This is why they are at the table with the CDC. This is why they are at the table with Joe Biden. This is why the PSCA can give Tom Wolf's campaign millions and millions of dollars. So they fund these campaigns, they get these people elected, and then it is their agenda that is pushed that has nothing to do with teachers or students.
So BethAnn, so everyone knows BethAnn and I as traveling the state flipping school boards in Pennsylvania. Of course, now we've gotten ourselves into national school boards, everywhere. But in Pennsylvania, we witnessed the teachers union come in and sometimes double what we spent. So we always said, there was no one that was fighting the union. So if you weren't endorsed by the union as a school board candidate, if you weren't receiving their money, there really was no place for you to get money from. There was just there's no place. So that's basically what BethAnn and I created, was an entity that says, just because you're not endorsed by the teachers union doesn't mean you're not for educators or education. You just don't believe in what the agendas they're pushing: critical race, DEI, mandated vaccines, all the above. So we created, as BethAnn, this is her line, the antithesis of the teachers union. She's so spot on. But her and I would see, we would give $10,000 to 5 candidates. They would come in and give $20,000. But the real problem here is, say they win the seat that they give money for. Now we give money, we win the seat. They give money, they win the seat on the school board or the entire school board slate. And then they turn around and negotiate contracts and salaries with the same people that they just bought. That's a conflict of interest. And that is really, we just launched on Back to School USA Action, we launched a pledge that basically says for educators to sign, for candidates to sign, for citizens to sign, that this is a conflict of interest for public school unions to use public taxpayer money to influence elections, buy those seats with not even their money, public school money, then negotiate contracts with the very same people. BethAnn, do you have any more to add to that, what we've seen?
Well, I mean, I think that, Clarice, you and I early on figured out with the school closures that it was really the union behind all of these decisions. Elected officials were making decisions, but they were elected with the money of the PSCA. And, I talk about Rich Askey all the time, the president of the PSCA here in Pennsylvania. And we called him out on Fox News because, he had a very specific agenda that he wanted to keep schools closed. That's what he wanted. And that's what they put all the pressure on these elected officials. So once we figured out what was going on, we knew at that point that we had to do something different. We had to go after those teachers unions because this is the only way that we're going to end what is happening, not just in our state, but all over the country. There are states where these unions are not as powerful. I was looking at some statistics, like in North Carolina, I think only about 50% of teachers belong to a union. So
Mississippi doesn't even have one.
No, I'm right. Some don't even have it. Pennsylvania, it's over 90%. Like, it's a huge number. And to Karin's point, most of these teachers, they don't even know that they have an option. And so what I really want us to be able to focus on is to help educate teachers that this is not your only choice. If they look at everything and they say, yep, this is for me, I'm in agreement with all of this political activism, well, great, that's your choice. You can spend that money. But so many teachers that I talk to really and truly do not understand that their money, their union dues, is supporting things like defund the police. When I tell teachers that, they're like, you've got to be kidding me. I'm like, no, that's what your money's going to. Are you okay with that? So I just want for teachers to have an honest opportunity to make an assessment, because I believe that there are large groups of teachers that will leave the union, and then the union doesn't become so powerful. Then they are not the only voice at the decision-making table. And I think that's been my personal mission since the lockdown started, was to take down the union, because they're far too powerful and influencing too many decisions for our kids.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Karin, I said to you offline, and I know that this has to be a question that's going through people's minds as they listen. Have you gotten any pushback from leaving the union? What's it looked like? When you left, are people picketing outside of your classroom? What does it look like, to leave the union?
I think that it sounds very scary, and it is scary. And a lot of times you're going to be the only one who's doing it. But at the same time, I feel like it's no one else's business. Like, a lot of people feel like they should, like, I'll have so many people be like, should I tell my principal? Should I tell my union rep? Should I tell my coworkers? And I'm like, no, you don't have to tell anybody. It's your money. It's your right. You don't need to tell anybody anything. So when I opted out, I didn't tell anybody. Because it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect. And I think oftentimes people feel like the pressure, paying your union dues doesn't affect you being a good teacher or not. You're a good teacher because you're a good teacher, not because what you pay or don't pay. And real quick before I go on, I wanted to say too, I know everyone talks about like teachers, and I think it's just the language that they use. But I can tell you, I have helped more school workers, more support staff, bus drivers.
That's a good point. Yep.
Nurses, guidance counselors. To be honest, I probably helped more support staff leave the union than I have helped teachers, because I feel like it's ingrained in teachers, within education. It's just a very democratic kind of world, if you will. I'm not saying everywhere, but I'm just saying in a broad term. So it's school workers. I mean, it's not just the teachers, it's everybody. It's the custodians, the groundskeepers. It's such a huge amount of people.
Well, Karin, it's so interesting, because I know somebody who is a school support staff, and she shared with me that, they pay all these union dues, and they feel like that the union does nothing for any of the other staff beyond teachers, the secretaries, the support staff, all the people that you just named. I have heard directly that the union does very, very little for those groups of people.
And not to mention, they're making pennies on the dollar.
Right.
And then paying all these union dues, and they really don't advocate for them. So I have started the past 2 or 3 weeks. I used to always call it the teachers union. And now I refer to this union as the public school union. It is the public school union, because I don't want people to think that we're even attacking teachers. I mean, I'm actually fighting for them so that their money is spent the way that they want it to be spent, and fighting for taxpayers for their money to be spent appropriately. So I really think we should get away from, naming it the teachers union, because it's really not. It's the public school union.
Yeah. Right. They don't discriminate. They will take everyone's money. And it's true. They don't discriminate.
It's true.
You're saying public school. The union is in charter schools. They're in private schools. Yeah. They are everywhere. They will literally unionize anything and everything that they can, because they want to make $377 million in 1 year. So you only do that by getting into every single place that you possibly can. So I've even gone I created the website Union Choice for School Workers. And the reason why, when I thought of the name for that, because like you said, public school, but it's like every single school worker. It doesn't even matter if you're in public school. You could just be a school worker, and they're coming. You have a choice, and they're coming for you. The question that you had asked me about what it was like for me. So nobody ended up giving me a hard time about it to my face in school. It was very quiet. Nobody approached me. I didn't tell anybody, but nobody approached me. Nobody said anything to me. I know that is not the case for many people. However, I have spoken with many teachers who will have the reps come up to them and, tell them that they're disappointed in them, that they are losing their voice, and that we're supposed to be united, solidarity, all these kinds of things. Okay. And so I didn't have that experience, but I know it does happen. There's a lot of pressure. I speak with a lot of people who will say, I'm a Republican, I'm a proud conservative, and this is really going against my beliefs. I'm having a hard time doing this. But their fear of their colleagues mistreating them or isolating them, and they have to work with these people every day. So I mean, I don't blame them, but I just think it's so sad that, and I'll sell this to people. I'll say, many of these same teachers who preach inclusion and tolerance and all this kind of stuff can't even do it to their grown adults can't even do it at their own job. So
you hit the nail on the head. That is probably the most salient point of this entire podcast today, is that these people that preach tolerance and acceptance of everything would not respect a teacher or a staff's decision to leave the union. So, I mean, I can't imagine a better place for us to end on that note today, because you just nailed it, Karin. I mean, this is what Clarice and I talk about. Our whole idea for this podcast of Moms in the Middle, we're not just that we're in the middle of all the stuff that's going on, but we're looking for moderate and middle positions on things. I'm not saying that the union isn't a good fit for certain people. Any teacher, once they have all the information, like I said, if this is their belief in political activism, then great, then pay your dues. But for those who don't know what's happening, they need the information to be able to make their own decisions. And to me, that's the moderate position. And that's what we're trying to promote, across the country, is that it doesn't have to be all this way or all that way. There is a middle ground, and that's what we're trying to get to.
And let's not forget the children, the students, the future of our republic are literally caught in the middle of this. And that's who we fight for the most. And I know that's who teachers fight for, and parents and taxpayers. I do feel very strongly that public school unions funded by public taxpayer money should not be able to influence elections.
Correct.
That is my stance. BethAnn's, we talk about this often. If that teacher, that bus driver wants to make a contribution out of their own pocket, that is fine. But the direct deposit deduction from the paycheck to a political action committee with taxpayer money, I think is an absolute conflict of interest.
Yep.
And we, again, I end a lot of podcasts this way. We will fight like hell to make sure that one day it is a conflict of interest to protect our students, our teachers, our workers, as you so brilliantly noted, Karin, our bus drivers, our custodians, all the above, to make sure their money is being spent correctly. And most of all, a world-class education for our kids, and to ensure they are productive members of society and not turning to crime. So, Karin, I would love to have you back, maybe in a couple episodes as we dive a little more. She talks all around, BethAnn. She talks around. She's not getting paid to do this activism.
Right.
I know. Not getting paid.
Why do you think I brought her? Why do you think I brought her to the show? Because I said she's a rock star. She's my hero to stand up and do the right thing. So that's why I thought it was so important for us to have her on.
Yeah, well, we'd love for you all listening to give Karin some love, push her along. She's helping everyone all around for no charge. And plus being a teacher and a mom. Okay, that's a lot. Come on.
Exactly.
So thank you all for listening. Please subscribe, comment, give Karin some love, and we will see you next week. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody. Bye. Thanks, Karin.
Thank you.
Thanks.